Hi there, Melissa here, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm really excited to be taking part in the Scrappy Sisters Scrap September, and my challenge was to do a layout using multiple photos. So what I decided to do was focus on this Out and About collection by Pink Fresh Studio, and I had the frames from my hip kit from last month, which would have been July, and I kept them because I knew I was purchasing some of that collection, and I knew I wanted to use them all together. I struggle with frames, and so the best way I think to use a product that you struggle with is to use them all in one go. So a grid is a perfect design for using multiple photos, and so I printed these photos into squares because I knew they'd fit my frames, and I'm just selecting which photos go with which frames. Now my videoing for some reason didn't record the placement of these frames and photos, and also the other little fourth little cluster I do instead of having another frame, but you'll see that soon. There, all you've missed is me cutting that globe paper and then journaling on that tag. So here I'm deciding what to call my layout. I was going to call it Ready to Roll because it's about jiu-jitsu, and rolling is what we call fighting in jiu-jitsu, but I decided to call it A Very Serious Morning. And so here I'm just counting up the number of letters and spaces, which comes to 22. Half of 22 is 11, and this is how I work out where the centre of the title will be. So you'll see in a sec I'm going to use these glitter foam alphas. I think they're thickers, and I think they might be part of a Maggie Holmes collection. Now, they're quite challenging because they are tall and thin, and because they're very narrow and thin, they kind of are hard to read when they're all placed together, and so you'll see what I mean in a sec. Here I'm just trying to find the centre and have a straight line as well, and so I'm just using that to place my first letter. Probably should have, in retrospect, used it to place all of them, but it's okay, it's not perfect. And it takes a bit of mucking around to try and get it how I want it. So here I'm just going ahead and adhering my frames. I've got quite a big gap. I wouldn't normally have such a big gap in my grid, but the reason for this is because those alphas are so tall, and so I wanted to have it even, so I guess I've got a big gap between down the centre of the page as well, if that makes sense. I'm not really sure what I'm doing here now. I probably should have cut this out, but I haven't. Yeah, not sure. Anyway, the other thing I forgot to say was that you missed me splattering the background as well. I needed to add a little bit of something to this background, so I just went with some really old Studio Calico Mr. Huey's. I can't even remember the colour. It's either sand or desert or something like that. And then I used some Heidi Swap, I think, green colour or blue, greeny blue colour, and then some really old Studio Calico exclusive to a kit, tiny little Mr. Huey's. I've got it here, I think. It's called, it's a mini mist called Skyscraper, and I've hardly got any left. I don't even know if you can get that one anymore. It may have been exclusive to a kit, probably back in like 2013 or 2014. So here I am working on my title, and it does bother me a little bit that I've got such a big gap between my grid, but that doesn't matter, it's going to work in the end. And yeah, foam thickers are great because they're very forgiving, so you can put them down, and I haven't pressed them that hard, and you can move them around really easily. So you'll find with chipboard thickers, once they're down, they're either not sticking because they need extra adhesive, or they are down and you can't lift them up without ripping the paper. So you can see here the word morning is getting quite difficult to read, and I'll fix that soon. It bugged me. I could have left it, but you'll see that the word serious has a lot more gaps in it, and I think because letters like the E and the S provide a bit more gap just naturally. So anyway, I'm getting this down. I thought, before I start fiddling with the word morning, I'll get it all down and then see how I can fix it. So even the V is quite a hard letter to work with too, because it's got a very big, I guess the lower part of the V is quite long. So anyway, you know what I mean, because you can see what I mean. So here I've sped it up. I could have cut this out, but I wanted to keep it in, just showing you how I fiddle with this to make it work. Now, I forgot to say about my wrist. I hurt it in jiu-jitsu. I sprained it. It's not that bad. At this point, I thought it was bad. So I put this, I don't know what you call that, wrist support on it. Went to physio this morning and it's not that bad. So it'll probably appear in a few of my videos this month. But yeah, it's just a hassle if anything. So here I'm still fiddling around, and I'll get it in the end. And you know, it's not straight, it's not perfect, but it doesn't matter. So with that piece of globe paper, I distressed the edges with my close to my heart distress tool, and I've just lifted it up as well to give it a bit more dimension. Also, I forgot to mention, because I didn't, for some reason didn't film it, but on those frames you've got those little elements all stitched on, and I have put dimensional adhesive behind each one. So for example, the word wander actually is lifted up so that it's not sitting flat to the page. So these photos, and the reason why it's called A Very Serious Morning is because this was the morning of the National Gi Jiu-Jitsu tournament in Auckland last year, and Sam and I went up with another friend and his daughter. And so this is just documenting what we did the morning before the tournament. So that first photo is having breakfast at the hotel, then we're getting an Uber, and then we're waiting in the queue to weigh in for the tournament. So yeah, it was serious because the kids were obviously thinking about what was to come with their fighting. So here now I'm just committing to sticking this journaling down. I don't have the date on yet because the date is on my phone and the phone is recording me or filming me. And I've just got that distresser there. It's really great, really reasonable from close to my heart. It's better than using your scissors because it doesn't really rip the paper. So I just distressed around that little ticket and just embellishing. So I didn't buy all of the collection. I bought some of it. I loved it. I thought it was perfect for scrapbooking Sam because a lot of my other products are very girly and he doesn't get that many layouts, I guess, because they are so girly. And so I'm determined to make most of this collection probably work for him. And he loves it too. So I just pulled a few things out that I thought would go. The arrow. A lot of circular elements are in this collection, and so at this point I'm not really sure what I'm doing, just building a few clusters, and it'll come together when I pull out the puffy stickers, and there's a mixed ephemera kind of pack, not ephemera, mixed embellishment pack. So I've added some dimension behind that tag and the ticket as well, just to lift it up. I think otherwise with the frames this could end up being very flat in terms of my layouts. I haven't used any craft foam to lift anything up in terms of the photos, and that doesn't bother me. So here I'm just adding some foam behind the little label. It says, I think it says this moment. And then I could not make this little epoxy clip, like a paper clip. I couldn't make it work without bending the photos or the frames. I think you probably do need craft foam, so I just cut the little prongs off and just put it behind, and I think it looks fine like that. So I have a few more photos of this little trip to Scrapbook. I think we were up there for 2 nights. We spent one night in Auckland before the tournament, and then Sam and I went and stayed with my parents for the other night. And so I did consider doing a mini album, but I decided to do some scrapbook layouts. And I think with multi-photos, they're really, if you scrapbook multiple photos, it's a great way of telling more of the story than if you just did one. Now, another way to scrapbook multiple photos is to use a pocket page. I often might do a single photo layout and have that like as an introductory page to my story, and I will have some journaling on it, but I will also then, if I have other photos, I've got these 2 different layouts of 6x12 pocket protectors, and one, the photo can go landscape, and the other one is portrait, and yeah, you can scrapbook like 4 other photos, or even more actually, maybe 6 total photos you could by doing it that way, and you can place it in your album next to your single photo layout. So I often do that, and I don't share those those pages on my Instagram, but I do share them here on my layout shares. So just something to bear in mind is if you're into story scrapbooking like me, it's definitely a good way to scrapbook multiple photos. Also, having smaller photos is another great way to scrapbook multiple photos so you can get more onto the page. So I'm just adding some enamel dots from that mixed embellishment pack, and then I decided to add a little bit more to my journaling. And that is my final layout. It's not heavily embellished like my normal style, but I'm really happy with it, and most importantly, Sam loves it too. So thank you so much for having me on this YouTube hop. All the details are below, so make sure you go and check out the other people that are playing along, and happy September.